You're in the military with summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. The Russians continue bombing and attacking the territory of Ukraine with hundreds of drones. So this morning the Minister of Defense of Ukraine reported that the Russians launched during the previous night, between the 26th and the 27th of January, 165 drones. The Ukrainians, according to the Minister of Defense, managed to bring down just 135. But this attack differs from the attacks that we saw in the past. The Russians were attacking not the city of Kiev or the region of Kiev. The Russians were attacking the cities of Kharkiv and Odessa. So the question is why the Russians did decide to change their focus, because we understand that the situation with critical infrastructure in the area of the city of Kiev is on the edge of complete collapse. So this is a very important question, and I would like to remind you that just yesterday we discussed that Russian drones were flying above the city of Kiev, most likely gathering the reconnaissance of information. The Russians were flying above the objects of critical infrastructure with the purpose to collect enough of information to prepare themselves before the next missile attack. But the Russians didn't attack the city of Kiev last night. So this is a very question, and the thing is that the Russians were forced to stop bombing the city of Kiev because, if you remember, yesterday there were very heavy missile clashes between the cities of Kharkiv and Belgorod. If you remember, we discussed that Ukrainians launched lots of missiles in the direction of the city of Belgorod, and the sources, pro-Russian sources, reported that Ukrainians were using HIMARS missiles. As of the morning of the 27th of January, we still haven't received anything that can confirm whether the Ukrainians managed to deal significant damage or significant destructions. We don't know for sure about the results of those attacks, but one thing we know for sure, and one thing is clear, that right after the Ukrainians finished attacking the city of Belgorod, the Russians began striking back, and the Russians began attacking the city of Kharkiv. So the entire attention of the armed force of the Russian Federation was focused on the city of Kharkiv. So this is the reason, most likely, why the Russians didn't attack the city of Kiev, and they continued gathering the intelligence information. So we received lots of reports from the monitoring channels about a major Iskander strike on the city of Kharkiv. We have lots of videos where we can see the blackout. So this is the situation in the city of Kharkiv. This is the situation before blackout, and this is the situation right after. So as you can see, the lights disappeared from at least this part of the city. We have a few more videos. So this is another video. This is the same building, but from another angle. Before and after blackouts, this is the situation in the city of Kharkiv. As you can see, some part of the city with the lights, some part with the city without power. So this is something like a gym. We see that the gym without power, but probably buildings in front of this construction has power. So the situation is very complicated, and the local sources are saying that 80% of Kharkiv and the surrounding region are without power as a result of combined strike, according to authorities. The strike was carried out using a Tornado S multiple launch rocket system and Shahed Geran drones, according to the head of the Kharkiv Regional Military Administration. So this is the reason. So we understand that the Russians were planning to attack the city of Kiev, but the Ukrainians needed this time. They needed time. They needed something like a truce, energy truce above the city of Kiev, with the purpose to restore and to repair energy infrastructure of the city. So that is why the Ukrainians were forced to begin bombing the city of Belgorod, just with one purpose: to force the Russians to move their attention from the city of Kharkiv, from the city of Kiev towards the city of Kharkiv. And of course the Russians were forced to do this because there were too many HIMARS missile systems, and of course the Russians realized that that was their chance to discover and to destroy as many as possible of these systems. And the sources are saying that the Russians attacked the city of Odessa. As for the city of Odessa, most likely this is something like an independent strike. I'm trying to tell you that most likely the Ukrainians are preparing themselves, most likely to begin attacks in the direction of Crimea or in the direction of the southern part of Russia. So this is something like an independent strike when the Russians discovered some positions or maybe temporary deployment points or warehouses or ammo depots on the territory of the city, and the Russians began bombing and attacking this territory. So in these videos we can see the consequences of attack. Huge building, as we can see, was completely destroyed and reduced to ruins. So we are waiting for additional updates, of course. The Russians continue conducting reconnaissance operation, gathering the intelligence information, and most likely when they have enough of information, they will strike once again. As for the, let's say, common energy situation in Ukraine, the sources are saying that up to 20 hours without power, strict power outage schedules in the Chernihiv region. We have huge problems with electricity in the city of Kharkiv, up to 80% of the city without electricity. We have huge problems on the territory of the city of Odessa, the same story, power outages, and of course huge problems on the territory of the city of Kiev. At the same time, we received probably one of the most important updates. Martial law and mobilization have been extended in Ukraine. Zelensky signed the laws. The effect of martial law, of the current new martial law and general mobilization, has been extended for another 90 days until May 4th, 2026, which means that 3 more months of clashes we will see on the territory of Ukraine. Now let's discuss a few more strikes that were carried out by Russians. One of them took place in the most northern part of the Sumy region. Here, according to pro-Russian sources, we can see a truck, most likely with drones, and the Russians, when they discovered this truck, attacked this truck with the Iskander missile or with the Tornado S missile. So this is the moment when the Russians attack with very fast missile. The truck was destroyed. So this is the first video that was published from the most northern part of the Sumy region. Another video was published from the most southern part of the Kharkiv region, from the area of the city by the name of Lazova. So this is a place where the Ukrainians collect, let's say, their forces, units, soldiers, vehicles, armored vehicles, and then somewhere from this direction, the Ukrainians decide where to send these units, either to send forces in the direction of the city Dobropolye from this area, or to send these forces in the direction of the Slaviansk Kramator. So this is something like the main logistical hub around the city of Lazova, because this railway logistic hub still works, still operates. And the Russians published this video, and here we can see a very huge column, a very huge concentration of Ukrainian vehicles. I tried to calculate the number of vehicles in this area, and I counted up to 50 vehicles of different types, armored vehicles, tanks, infantry, fighting carriers, and so on. When the Russians discovered this concentration of forces, the Russians attacked this territory with 3 or 4 Iskander missiles. So lots of strikes. Just here we might see 3 explosions, 3 attacks, 3 Iskander missiles. We can see something like an evacuation crew that arrived at this area with the purpose to evacuate vehicles, so those who managed to survive. But this huge concentration of forces were destroyed, so which means that one of the front lines won't be able to receive additional reinforcements and reserves in coming days. Now let's talk about the most important update when talking about the situation on the ground, and we're going to talk about the Kupiansk direction. Today, the chief of the general staff of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, Valery Gerasimov, made a fantastic statement. Yes, this is a fantastic statement, and telling the truth, lots of pro-Russian sources called these statements as fantastic. So what is happening? He stated that today the Russians managed to finish the battle for the settlement of Kupiansk-Uzlovoy. So, of course, based on the report published by the chief of the general staff of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, we have adjusted the map, but you know that I read lots of articles published by pro-Russian sources. I read lots of articles published by pro-Russian mappers and pro-Ukrainian mappers and neutral mappers, and telling the truth, nobody believes that this is the situation, this is the reality. So we have adjusted the map because we have some rules, but telling the truth, we believe that maybe in coming days we will receive something like evidence or some pictures or updates that will confirm completely opposite situation. Anyway, we have colored not the entire Kupiansk-Uzlovoy, but the central part. Once again, these are the changes, and of course everything is possible, telling the truth, and maybe this is the reality, who knows, but you know that the situation in the area of the city of Kupiansk is too complicated. There were Russian counter-offensive operation, there was a Ukrainian counter-offensive operation, so there is a very, very huge gray zones, lots of gray zones, lots of territories covered with the fog of war. There are too many Ukrainian positions, there are too many Russian positions, and sometimes these positions could be located right in front of each other. So that is why the situation here is still very complicated, but this report is very interesting. So we have adjusted the map, and if this information is correct, and if when summarizing everything that was stated by the Russians during the previous months, we can say that the battle for the northern parts of the eastern bank of the river Voskol has been completed. There are just several villages left, and we are talking about the villages of Kovsharovka, Novoosinovo, and Glushkovka. So we are talking just about the villages which are located in the southern pocket of the northern Kupinsk direction. So, and the Russians, according to different mappers and according to different videos, have already begun their assault operation in this area. And in this video we can see how Russians were bombing first positions and temporary deployment points of the armored forces of Ukraine on the territory of the city of Kovsharovka. So first explosions, first attacks occurred. So let's wait and see what is going to be next. Of course, we are waiting for a video where we might see Russian soldiers raising the Russian flag through the city of Kupinsk-Uzlavoy. As of the moment when I started making this video, we still haven't received anything. So let's wait and see, of course. Let's wait and see, and then obviously everything will become clear. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Slaviansk direction. During the previous 12 hours, the Russians continued their offensive operation, and we have additional changes on the ground to the west of the river of Bakhmutka and to the south of the river of Seversky Donets. So these are the changes on the ground, and all these changes were made based on the videos that were published by pro-Ukrainian sources. In this video, we can see how Ukrainians with FPV drones were attacking Russians to the west of the river of Bakhmutka, to the southwest of the city of Seversk. Lots of attacks, lots of explosions, lots of episodes during this video, and two of them were geolocated at these 2 points. So based on this video, we have adjusted the map. Another attack of FPV drone took place here, and this position was also adjusted. So the Russians continue offensive, not so fast as probably the Russians were advancing in the Zaporozhye direction in the late military campaign of 2025, but at the same time the Russians are advancing. As for the city of Konstantinovka, everything is clear. We have added this black cloud. This is a kill zone that obviously was created by Russians in the most northern part of the southern part of the city of Konstantinovka. We added this area because this is the only corridor that Ukrainians can use to bring additional reinforcements and reserves in the southern part of the city. So, and the Russians, of course, established complete control over the territory. And today we received another video of how Ukrainians were trying to redeploy their forces from the northern part, from the mainland in the direction of the southern part of the city of Konstantinovka, but the vehicle, when was discovered, was immediately attacked by an FPV drone of the armored forces of the Russian Federation, and was destroyed. So this episode took place right exactly in this area, and we see that Ukrainians, if they send their units, vehicles, they can probably get only the central part, so this line, and the Ukrainians are not risking to move further in the southern direction, but even this is not enough to secure their vehicles completely, because Russians have complete control over the territory. So as of now, it's something like a siege. Ukrainians have huge problems with the logistics. The Russians are not moving further. They're waiting because they understand that sooner or later Ukrainians we won't be able to support the defense of the southern part for so long with the space of losses. So which means that the Russians are just waiting and they're counting the Ukraine's losses. As for the Dobropolye direction, currently there are very heavy clashes for the settlement of Novodonbass, and by the way, this was also confirmed by the Chief of the General Staff. During the previous 24 hours, we received another video that confirms very heavy clashes on the territory of the settlement, and these are the changes, by the way, on the ground between the dates. This is, for example, the end of the 24th of January. This is approximately the moment when the Russians launched their offensive operation with the purpose to establish complete control over the settlement of Novodonbass, and as of the morning of the 27th of January, the Russians secured, as you can see, up to 25% of the village, or up to even 30%, and the Russians continue advancing. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Zaporozhye direction. The most important update is coming from the western Zaporozhye. Today, the same situation. The chief of the general staff reported that Russians managed to establish complete control over the settlement of Novoyakovlevka. We haven't managed to adjust the map. We are waiting for additional updates, for additional clarifications, maybe the report of the Minister of Defense. And when we receive one, we will of course adjust the map and we will discuss everything during the next video. So once again, most likely before the next video we will adjust the map and we will color the territory like this. So we will color the territory of Novoyakovlevka under complete Russian control, and we will move Ukraine's positions further in the east or in the northeast. So this is the situation. Let's wait and see, and of course we are waiting for videos with flags, because this is going to be the most probably reliable proof of additional progress on the ground from the Russian side. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds to we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.